favorite spots. So
Let's see. Where was it?
fish viewer known as the QuadraScan. You could take microfilm strips and stick them in there and look at them that way without the full-sized huge machines for librarians and researchers on the go. I don't know. There had to have been some really practical use for this to be an entire portable product. And we've got one more Goodwill.
This is where we're at.
Just one more, but you know, take what I can get these days. And this one usually has some interesting stuff inside. In fact, the inside itself is relatively interesting compared to last time I was here. Yeah, it's been thoroughly remodeled with the same slightly darker design that they've been doing at other Goodwills in the area, like brown and black shelves. Not down the faux wood floors like they have at some of the others, but still looks kind of nice. And of course, I'm looking for ugly lamps, and I found some ugly lamps, but man, this is way uglier than just about any lamp I've ever seen. It's like a purse. I don't know, what were they going for here? Looking at it, touching it, just makes me want to sneeze. Okay, well, moving on. Yeah, check out some of the benefits of the remodel. They got these nice areas sectioned off for specific collections of glass and mugs, and just looks a little more organized than it used to until it's been here for a while and nobody cares to organize it anymore. You know, I'm not just in the market for ugly old lamps at the moment. I'm also looking for some ugly old furniture, but it's got to be the right kind of ugly furniture. This isn't quite it.
I would have bought that for $1.
Patterns are okay, but these just aren't the right ones, man. Even
He's
though
the
they
exact
are just
opposite
$1 today. That's a deal. I don't know, it all kind of smells like musty cat odor and moss, but hey, it's $1. And hey, they got a little end cap of keyboards now, and I see one beige one, or kind of white beige, I don't know, it's yellowed. There's nothing at all special about it. In fact, this is about the most generic Windows 95 keyboard. In fact, the model number is keyboard Win95. That's how generic it is. But anyway, always got to take a moment to admire a keyboard that is even slightly older. There's a selection of LCD monitors, as always. This one in particular stood out because of its wonkiness. It looks like it might be a rotating one, and indeed it is. An HP L1750. Looks like a 15-incher perhaps. It's got one of those bases at the bottom. I don't know if like a thin client goes down there or what, but yeah, I've got a rotating monitor right now that I'm quite happy with, but you know, it's just neat to see one. Oh my goodness, that shade of orange could only come from like 40 plus years ago. What we have here is a Radio Shack EC3002 calculator in the box. Goodness, I've seen one of these calculators before at Goodwill, but never the box. And it seems to be in really good shape too, all things considered. It's even got the little protective cover with it. Dude, check out that original price sticker too, $89.95 in 1980, which is around $330 now. Wow. I don't really collect calculators of this type, but man, it was just awesome to see the packaging. I approve with force. Okay, what do we got here? We got a Dell Dimension something or other, documentation. Is there any software though? That is the question. And opening it up, the answer is yes, although it mostly just seems to be Dell Restore CDs. I mean, hey, definitely useful to someone, just not to me, as well as a Microsoft Works suite. Yeah, I was hoping for some games. Also, a benefit of the remodel, check out their DVDs and CDs section, yeah, just media in general. It's looking quite stocked. They used to have all these spread out all over the store. Now they're in one place. Not terribly organized or anything, but at least the media types are generally grouped together, although you do see software and games and stuff mixed in as per usual. We got Day of Defeat here for the PC, as well as Zoo Tycoon 2, the complete Zookeeper collection. Yeah, I've already got all these individually, but still, it's a good collection of gaming. They even had a few PlayStation 2 games and a Wii game tossed in here. I just don't see these very often at all anymore while thrifting, man. Those days are long gone when you could just find tons of these all over the place for like $1 or $2. Nah, not anymore. You're lucky if you find a few sports games, and even luckier if they have the discs. Up in amongst the audio CDs, I found a couple of loose PC games in here. Myst Masterpiece Edition and the Descent 1 and 2 Definitive Collection Pack, which, of course, was missing the discs. It sucks to see these actually show up in a store and then they don't even have the discs. You just know that's going to get thrown away. And around the other side, filled with primarily VHS tapes, as well as vinyl records. with a Def Leppard album down here definitely standing out. Of course, it's missing the actual record. What the heck? Didn't see any Laserdiscs either. Always like going through the records just in case, but nope. Over in the puzzles and board games was a fascinating collection of slides, or at least the carousels that would have held them, all from the 1970s. I mean, these people were going around from Alaska to Michigan to Canada to Oregon, Washington, California, Vegas, and just all kinds of places. But yeah, none of the actual slides were in there, which, I mean, I get why they would probably just get rid of them, or maybe they were gotten rid of before they even came here. But Alaska, there was nothing to see here. And there's an entire shelf dedicated to Christmas goodies. And check this out. This is one of those fiber optic Christmas trees I used to see much more of back in the early 90s. I don't know, they were always kind of oddly appealing, but extremely tacky in hindsight. Just to see one of these in the box is an odd nostalgic treat. Oh yeah, look at this retro drill and mustard color, classical design. What really got my attention though is this power cord.
Yep.
It's just like, it's got to be the most comically, uselessly short power cord I've ever seen on a power tool. You'd need an extension cord, like even if you're up against an outlet, it still seems too short. And then finally on my way out, I noticed an abnormal number of pink shirts and had to take a look when I just see so many of the same thing. Yeah, they're all Walt Disney World shirts. And then as I kept looking, yeah, look at all these. Cars Land shirts, just dozens of them. Disneyland Resort shirts. How did all of these end up in a thrift store in the Western North Carolina mountains? Fascinating. Maybe somebody with more knowledge of Disney goings-on can let me know how this might have happened. And yeah, that is about it for this episode of Thrifts. I didn't buy anything. I seriously haven't run across much that I would want to buy. I don't know. It's just been a very dry season for thrifting finds lately. And honestly, I've got enough stuff. So, even though there were things that I could have gotten, kind of interesting or whatever, I don't really feel hugely compelled to do so, especially as I'm moving into a new place and being confronted with enough stuff anyway. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode.
It was fun.
It's been quite a while since we've done this, and it's just kind of par for the course, and I really want to do more of these if I ever get the chance to do more, but it really does rely on luck while out thrifting, and yeah, we'll see how it goes as I'm in a slightly more convenient spot to some stores and less convenient to other stores now, my new place. So we'll see. As always, though, thank you so very much for sending in your requests for more thrifts and asking whether it's still going. And, yeah, it always is. This is not a show that I plan on canceling.
That's my rage.
I want to keep it going as much as I can. And to that end, seems obvious y'all are still going out and finding cool stuff and sending photos of your finds my way, as you're seeing here. So much cool stuff is still out there. If you get there at the right time and it's the right price, and it's a lot of luck, more so than ever these days, but so it goes. And I hope that this was fun to watch as well. Till next time, whenever that may be, thanks for watching LGR Thrifts.
Oh, you get a good deal on that one. I love thrifting, man. Look at this shit. Holy shit. I didn't know the game's still being made. Holy shit, Shiba. RIP. Most of those are good games. That fucking weird controller. Old school Westworld. Alright, let's go find another video to watch before I go to sleep. Is there anything good? Anything different? A lot of shit I see is bad. Let me watch this. It's like 47 seconds long.
what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna run this, and this rift right here is gonna cost me about $20. Yeah, it's really not a big deal. Oh, he's almost dead. Okay. Wow! So we're gonna do no crests. I'm gonna show you guys what just an average run looks like, okay? All right, let's see the loot. Wait. There's no chest. I didn't get any upgrades.
What can I do for you?
Yeah. It's pretty bad. Let's go watch some YouTube videos, shall we?
Hong Kongers had better keep their mouths shut because commemorating the Tiananmen Square massacre is a threat to national security. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Today is June 4th, 2022, a day when nobody commemorates anything, because absolutely nothing happened here 33 years ago. At least that's a new rule in Hong Kong. As you may recall in previous decades, Hong Kong was a terrible and chaotic place. Hong Kongers were allowed to express all sorts of viewpoints, with no regard for how their words might harm China's national security. And Hong Kong was the only part of China where you could openly remember the victims of the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. They would hold candlelight vigils on the big soccer pitches in Victoria Park every single year. But in 2020, China imposed a national security law on Hong Kong. It was in response to a year of protests against the Hong Kong government and the Chinese Communist Party. And now in 2022, trying to commemorate Tiananmen Square could get you arrested. For example, earlier this year, activist Chow Hong-tung was sentenced to 15 months in jail for trying to organize a Tiananmen candlelight vigil in 2021. That's on top of her previous sentence for trying to organize a candlelight vigil in 2020. What's so wrong about organizing a candlelight vigil in Victoria Park? Well, you see, it's because of COVID. The judge explained that Chow had ignored and belittled a genuine public health crisis and wrongly and arrogantly believed in commemorating June 4th rather than protecting the health of the community. But how about this year? Surely COVID isn't still a threat to people gathering outside wearing masks. Well, this week at a press briefing, a reporter asked Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam whether it would be legal now to hold a Tiananmen vigil in Victoria Park. She responded that any public activity in Hong Kong, regardless of the purpose, has to fulfill the requirements in the law. As far as any gathering is concerned, there are a lot of legal requirements. There is the national security law, there is the social distancing restrictions, and there is also a venue question. So she didn't actually answer the question or draw a red line on what is or is not legal. She basically just said, don't gather in Victoria Park for reasons we'll decide after we arrest you. If that sounds menacingly vague, that's exactly how the national security law is written. Pretty much anything can be labeled a threat to national security if authorities say it is. So why are Hong Kong authorities so against people commemorating something that happened 3 decades ago? I'll explain after the break. Welcome back. Why are Hong Kong authorities so adamant about stopping people from commemorating the 1989 Tiananmen massacre? Because Hong Kong is now controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and the party doesn't want people to remember. It wants them to forget. The reason is simple. The Chinese Communist Party is a lying liar who lies. Mao Zedong and the Communist Party took over China in 1949 using a giant lie. That China in the past was completely oppressive and feudalistic, and that the only way forward for China was to allow the great, glorious Communist Party to take over. Therefore, no matter how many landlords or counter-revolutionaries you have to kill, it's okay. It's for the sake of equality. Equality never panned out. Not because it was hard to achieve, but because they never intended it to begin with. But after Mao Zedong died, Deng Xiaoping promised economic reforms. Those reforms gave people hope that perhaps there could also be political reforms. So in April of 1989, thousands of people gathered in Tiananmen Square to mourn the death of Hu Yaobang, a former Chinese official who they thought of as a political reformer. And that led to a 2-month occupation of the square, with people calling for the Communist Party to give them just a little more political freedom. They weren't calling for the party to be overthrown. They wanted the party to reform. And you know what the Communist Party's answer was? The June 4th Tiananmen Square massacre was brutal. And even worse, it was caught on camera. And the victims weren't those Falun Gong or those Uyghur Muslims or any of those other people. The victims were everyday Chinese citizens. The Tiananmen Square massacre demonstrated that no one under the Chinese Communist Party is safe. How can you believe in a brutal regime that kills its own citizens like this for no reason? That's pretty hard to do. And that's why the party needs everyone to forget. Forget the killing. Instead, you should celebrate the Communist Party. They bring peace and security. And that's the essence of it. The Communist Party is terrified of people knowing what they've done. So they will use the most brutal and even ludicrous methods to hide the truth. And that spills over into Hong Kong as well, the only part of China where they were still holding Tiananmen vigils every year. The Hong Kong National Security Law in 2020 was designed to bring an end to a year of protests. And it worked. But as a side benefit, it also gave them an excuse to shut down all discussion of Tiananmen. For example, in 2021, authorities temporarily closed down Hong Kong's June 4th Museum over a supposed licensing issue. Of course, the temporary closure became permanent, so organizers moved it online. But then authorities blocked their website. Then authorities deleted their digital records of the Tiananmen crackdown under a police order to close the museum's website and social media accounts. And then finally, at the end of last year, the very last monuments to the Tiananmen massacre in Hong Kong were dismantled, like the Pillar of Shame. The University of Hong Kong had taken it down in the middle of the night, because that's what you do when you have nothing to hide. The university's press release the next morning cited legal risks. After that happened, more Hong Kong universities removed their Tiananmen monuments. Lingnan University removed this relief sculpture, while the Chinese University of Hong Kong took down this Goddess of Democracy statue, a replica of the one the students had built on Tiananmen Square. They said they were removing an unauthorized statue, while Lingnan University claimed their removal was also because of legal risks. Yeah, legal risks. The same vague legal risks you face if you commemorate the Tiananmen massacre with a candlelight vigil in Victoria Park now. Because police in Hong Kong are now operating like police in mainland China. They're so extreme that once they arrested 8 people for a silent event where they just stood there and held up blank pieces of paper. So clearly, no protest is safe. Which is why it's so brave that one Methodist church in Hong Kong actually held a June 4th event earlier this week. It's especially gutsy because a lot of other churches have dropped their Tiananmen tributes this year. The Methodist Church's event poster said, "We pray that the Lord will treat our country and people with kindness, bless us with peace, mend divisions, heal our wounds, and let more people return to the kingdom of our Lord."
Damn.
Clearly a subversive idea. The brave reverend of that church, Yuan Ting Yao, will probably wind up in jail at some point for that. But in the meantime, he told the South China Morning Post this week, "I believe most Hong Kongers will not forget the June 4th crackdown. It's just that the way of commemorating may not be easy." He also said, speaking about the big candlelight vigil that's now illegal, in the past 2 years they cited pandemic reasons. But this year they clearly stated that only football playing is allowed at Victoria Park. All right, everyone, let's go to Victoria Park today and play football. Wear plain clothes without any slogans and say nothing. Just kidding, the police will still arrest you. Because even the slightest hint of calling out the Communist Party's brutal past is far too dangerous. And now it's time for me to answer a question from a viewer on Patreon.
Damn.
It's a crowdfunding website we use to raise money to support us and all our staff at China Uncensored. because we're definitely not getting money from China. And one of the Patreon perks is being able to ask me a question that I answer on the show. Today's question comes from Drawdle. Hey Chris and crew, why do American elites want Xi out of power? Are the elites hoping a new leader will make China and communism look more favorable to moderate Americans? Well, Drawdle, a lot of American elites are very smart. So smart that they're actually stupid. They see all the terrible things happening in China right now under Xi Jinping, militarization, taking over Hong Kong, targeting US companies, etc., and they think, boy, this Xi Jinping is a bad guy. Things were so much better under Jiang Zemin, and that other guy, I forgot. Actually, that's idiotic. Yes, there were what appeared to be golden years in China in the 1990s and 2000s, when Westerners could go in and make money. But that's not because the Communist Party was better back then. It's because they wanted to steal our knowledge and intellectual property and use it to outcompete America. And they did. In just 3 decades, they've stolen almost every kind of American technology, from wind turbines to weapons, enough that they no longer depend on us. And now, they don't have to pretend to be nice to us. Ever since the Communist Party took over China, their goal has been to surpass and destroy the West. American elites may think they want Xi Jinping out of power, but that will not magically make things better. It will just lead to some new awful dictator because the nature of the Communist Party hasn't changed. But American elites can be so greedy, it blinds them to reality. They still think they can make money in China, like investment firm BlackRock, which says we should triple down on China. Whether Xi Jinping is in power or the next guy, the Communist Party is not going to change for the better, and BlackRock is not going to get their money back. Thanks for your question, Drawdle, and thank you for watching. Learn more about how you can support this show by going to patreon.com/China Uncensored. Contribute $1 or more per episode. Every little bit helps. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.
Alright, I don't see anything worth watching. A lot of bullshit. I'll watch this video for a second. Yeah, I beat them at the beginning because they're so loud.
Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it's time for another daily dose of dismal Disney, I guess. Disney will not recognize a union. The Animation Guild is seeking to unionize the production workers on The Simpsons, Family Guy, and American Dad, the former Fox properties, I guess. They're going to unionize, and it's not the animators. These are the production people, and Disney's not recognizing
Oh, Jesus
this union
Christ.
right away.
But the union thing seems to be an ongoing issue lately. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, so we're going to roll a lot of union news into this video because it's not just
Not looking
Disney.
good.
I did a video the other day talking about Seven Seas, the manga publisher. Their attempts to unionize that Seven Seas is not going to recognize that union. They've actually hired lawyers to fight it. And, you know,
Disney has big time lawyers, so
Disney
Disney doesn't
has-
want to recognize that they'll probably win.
Yeah, you know, this is kind of similar to what happened with Image Comics. And here's the thing, though, it's happening all over the place. This is a worst case scenario, and I told people about this. You know, I said, look, I'm not anti-union.
No.
Depends on the purpose of the union, but I can tell you, as an old dog who's worked many places, and I've worked in places that did unionize, the one place I worked at, the boss sold the company just so he didn't have to deal with the union.
Right.
And it looks like this one Starbucks in New York is actually going to shut down so they don't have to deal with the
And,
union.
yeah, and they're mad about it.
Look at what Kickstarter did. They unionized, and almost all their unionized employees, as soon as they hit a bump in the road, they're like, oh yeah, hey, we're running out of money. Goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Well, with Starbucks, there's a bunch of different locations that are unionizing, and I guess in this case, they said that they struck one day because they said that the grease trap or something overflowed, so that apparently leads to a strike, and because of that, I think it's retaliation for striking one day, and the union's setting up a thing so that all these baristas can strike if they want to, and I'm just like, see, that's where you lose me. Like, I agree.
Yeah.
Starbucks is one I think should have a union because of it's like, you know, a lot of these things I believe that unions might be a beneficial thing. When you misuse it is when I tend to disagree. And there's some unions out there that seem predatory in their
Yeah.
their move to make sure they try to grab up as many different people into their union as they can because they make money.
Well, CWA is one of them.
Yeah.
And they're the ones behind the Activision union. They're the ones behind the Image Comics union. They're the ones behind the Seven Seas union. And it does seem like they're trying to find like disgruntled geek workers to unionize. And a lot of times, look, I'm not saying that these people don't work hard. I'm not saying that they're not being, worked harder during the pandemic, because we know that the demand for manga was insane.
Right.
The demand for animation was insane. But on the union's side, I think they are being very predatory. And I think they're also taking advantage of the situation that, people can't find employees. So they're like, well, if you want any employees, you're going to have to deal with the union.
I think that where there might be some,
All right.
I think valid
At this point,
concern
I'm really
that
bored and
it's just being
sleepy.
blown up.
Yeah, so let's talk
Twice
about
tonight.
this. Before we get into it any further.
No. Yeah, I gave you a chance. We're at 3 minutes in the shit. I'm fucking bored. I'm sleepy. Good night. It is what it is. I gave you